17th of November 2021.
Queen Elizabeth spent a night in the hospital.
We will meet again.
There's only room for one sovereign.
From news.com.au.
I'm Andrew Bucklow, and I've got news for you. I'm sure you've seen the reports about the Queen's health lately. It's not looking great, is it? I mean, she's been in hospital, she's been cancelling a number of quite important events. I mean, I hope that her health improves, but if not, it means that we're not far away from Prince Charles becoming king. Now, Charles is an interesting fella. He's not exactly adored by the public for a number of reasons. Diana! So today we're going to chat to our resident royal expert and ask her, will the world accept Charles as king, or is there a chance he could simply pass the throne straight to Prince William? We'll also find out what happens when the Queen dies, from the code words that will be used to spread news of her passing, to how the sound of Big Ben will be tweaked out of respect. And just for fun, we're going to take a look back at Prince Charles's 3 most awkward moments, including when he was secretly recorded telling Camilla that he'd like to be a tampon that lives in her pants. Yeah. Daniela Elsa is a journalist and news.com.au contributor who's been covering the royal family for years. Daniela, let's start with the Queen's health. What's the latest?
Okay, well, she's okay, we think. So we're kind of coming up to a month this week since her current health crisis began. You know, in that time, she was hospitalised overnight. The palace tried to keep it a secret, which was a really stupid idea, and obviously it got out. She's had to cancel on a number of really big events. So that's gotten people really worried. And you know, the fact that the palace hasn't really been putting out any information at all about what's going on has really gotten people's, you know, fears up. And then on Sunday, she was meant to be at Remembrance Day events at the Cenotaph in London. You know, that was kind of going to be her big return to work. And then less than 2 hours before the kickoff, the palace announced that she had strained her back and would not be coming. What's interesting about this is that one of the things that has kind of emerged in the last couple of days is the question of, you know, whether she's having more serious mobility issues than we might have realised. So last month in October, we saw her using a walking stick for the first time, well, at least the first time when it wasn't after knee surgery. In September, it came out that she's at least taking a break from riding horses, which she loves. So it's looking like there are certainly some issues around her mobility that are going on. But, you know, she's 95 years old, so she's 96 in less than 6 months. So I think, you know, if she is, that it's completely to be expected.
100%. Now, obviously the heir to the throne is Prince Charles.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a massive fan of him. None of my friends seem to be a massive fan of him either. Are we kind of in the general public's opinion? Does everyone think he's a bit of a tosser?
I don't know about a bit of a tosser. I think, you know what, he's never going to have a huge fan base. He's never going to be adored. He's never going to be just loved in the way that some public figures are. But I think what I find surprising anyway is whenever I see the approval numbers come out in the UK is how he's less unpopular than you might think.
Oh, okay.
And strangely enough, even after this year, even after Meghan and Harry's, Oprah interview, even after kind of the accusations they've raised about the royal family, his popularity's actually gone up. So Charles's approval rating is sitting at about 58%, which to me is higher than you know you kind of I might have thought.
But he has struggled with his popularity in the past. You know, he's 73 years old now. He's had a long time to win us over. Why do you think he hasn't been able to kind of win over the public during his public life so far?
Oh God, that's a big question. Look, okay, I think that, you know, the short and quick answer here is Diana. You know, he, even before she came on the scene, though, you have to keep in mind here, you know, in the 70s, the palace tried really hard to sell him as this sexy kind of, action man prince. And you know, that wasn't it. Yeah, I know. As weird as that is, there's some really crazy photos that they, you know, photo ops they tried to get him to do. It never quite worked. It never quite stuck. He's never been the sort of figure that really inspired public passion and that people were really drawn to. And then he marries this beautiful kind of young, really perfect princess, and the marriage starts to go sour pretty fast and pretty obviously, and the public's watching this, and you know, he became the real baddie in the piece. You know, then in 1994 he famously went on TV and admitted he'd cheated on Diana. Now, albeit she had actually cheated as well, but that really cemented in people's minds this idea that, you know, he was just this cruel, really heartless figure, and people just couldn't understand how he would choose Camilla over this, beautiful, incredible woman. So I think that really kind of cemented his fate in terms of public approval. But, he's just never going to be the sort of figure that people adore in the way that, people adore the Queen, or I would say that people adore Prince William. He's just never been that person, and he never will be.
Let's chat about Prince William, because me and my mates, whenever we chat about the royal family, which happens way too often, we always go, why couldn't Charles just pass the crown straight over to Prince William? Because we can get behind him. We love him. Is there any chance that could happen?
Absolutely and utterly not.
Oh.
Absolutely. That's just, you're more likely to see, I don't know, Prince Charles doing some naked yoga or something.
Oh, yes, please.
God, that's an image. Look, I think, first of all, Charles has literally been waiting his whole life for this job. He wants it. He's done a 70-year traineeship, basically, for this job. He wants it. So he's not going to relinquish it. And I think the bigger thing here is that the palace would never kind of accede to public demand. Let's say Charles had truly abysmal approval ratings. There was incredible numbers behind people wanting William to be king next. They wouldn't respond to that. That's just not how it works. They wouldn't bow to public whim and what the public wants. It's just not how they operate. So, I think there is unfortunately very little chance, in fact, if not no chance, that that William's going to be there next.
Okay, so Charles is definitely going to be king. What effect do you think the Queen's death and Charles's ascension to the throne will have on the monarchy?
Look, I think this is going to be massive, and I think there is going to be this really quite dangerous period after she passes away when he becomes king, where people in the UK and around the Commonwealth are really going to start to have to think about whether they want the monarchy. Do they still want the monarchy to play the same function in their country's lives that it has? And I think that moment where you're having a lot of people forced to think about the monarchy, what it stands for, what does it do, do we still want it, is really dangerous for the royal family. And I think we're really going to see that in Australia. And I think we're going to see a real resurgence of the Republican movement. Now, whether that actually there's enough groundswell there that, for example, we see another referendum or anything like that, I'm not so sure. But, it's certainly going to be this incredibly destabilising, dangerous moment for the palace.
Daniela, there are so many protocols in place for when the Queen dies. Can you run me through what will happen in the minutes and hours after she passes away?
Sure. Look, and there are so every minute has been planned, after she breathes her last, and exactly what will happen. And it's really fascinating. So the first person outside of the family who will know is her private secretary, who will contact the Prime Minister. And then there's basically a phone tree in terms of kind of going down the seniority of government, and there will be messages relayed, and this is kind of just, I find, just gives me chills, but the message that will be relayed is London Bridge is down, and that will be how people find out.
Wow.
Now, yeah, so if she passes away overnight, the world will be told at 8 a.m. London time. That's really kind of set in stone. So once the world has been told, we'll see a footman wearing black who'll cross the forecourt of Buckingham Palace, and he will attach a note to the front of the gates with black edges. Both the Houses of Parliament will be recalled. They will sit as soon as possible. And then at about 6 o'clock that evening, we will see Charles address the nation and make some sort of TV address. And then will be an official 10-day mourning period between her passing away and the funeral. Now, a lot of these plans were obviously done before COVID. So a lot of the things that have been kind of set down, it really depends what the lay of the land is COVID-wise, I suppose, when she passes away. So what had been planned is that her coffin will lie in state at Westminster Abbey so the public can pay their respects, and that it would be open 23 hours a day. Now, obviously, if she was to pass away sooner, you probably don't want that for COVID reasons. So we'll wait and see. But then 10 days after she passes away, we have her state funeral at Westminster Abbey. It'll be led by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The funeral will most likely, at least in the UK, be a public holiday. And then a lot of things will happen on that day. For example, the London Stock Exchange will close. There are a lot of estimates about even just what that day alone is going to cost the UK economy in terms of billions of pounds. And, there's just amazing small details that I just find really fascinating. So, for example, Big Ben, obviously the famous clock, there's a very special leather gizmo, I don't know what the technical term is, that will go around the bit that kind of, bongs the bell, so it's muffled. So, so even the sound of Big Ben will change on the day of her funeral, just for the day of the funeral. I know, it's incredible. And then the last thing that happens is her body will be driven to Windsor, where she will be buried.
And how long after the Queen's death does Charles become king?
Okay, so what happens is the day of the funeral, he will speak to the people. The next day at 11 o'clock, the Ascension Council meets. This is something that kind of dates back hundreds of years. It's made up of certain members of the Privy Council. They meet and officially proclaim him king. Then a man who has the great title, the Garter King of Arms, stands on a very particular balcony and he proclaims King Charles III, or most likely King Charles III.
This may sound like a silly question. Is it going to be King Charles? Is he definitely going to use that name?
That's not a stupid question because, like so many things with the royal family, they do not make it easy or straightforward or just do things in a particularly rational way. So kings and queens have something that is known as a regnal name. So basically you get to choose it. So, for example, the Queen's uncle, his given name was David, but when he became king, he was King Edward the Eighth. Or the Queen's father was known as Bertie. His Christian name was Albert. But when he became King George the Sixth. So technically, Charles could pick a completely other name if he wanted to be known as that. But realistically, it's most likely going to be King Charles III.
And do we know what plans Charles has for the monarchy when he becomes king? What does he want to do? Does he want to shake things up or just keep business as usual?
Well, look, he certainly had long enough to think about it, like 70 years waiting for a job. I do think he wants to do more than just, christen boats and open parliament and get to occasionally, get the crown jewels out and have a go wearing them. But that said, I also think, he has been learning at his mother's knee for decades now. And I don't think we're going to see this really wild kind of deviation from the way she did things. So I think he will move slightly away from and modernise things a little. But I think the person to really watch here is William. What's starting to crystallise is that he has a slightly more radical view of what ruling should mean and what it should look like, and I guess what the royal family should stand for, or what the monarchy should stand for, and how relevant and useful it is as an institution. So I think Charles's reign, it's not going to be particularly long. So I think it will be in some ways more like a caretaker reign. He'll kind of get to keep the seat warm for William, and that's when things will really start to change.
News.com.au's Bronte Coy joins me now. We're going to take a look at Prince Charles's 3 most awkward public moments. Bronte, you've got the first one. Go for it.
Just 3, Bucky. Wow. Very
Sorry
restrained.
about that. I know there's a lot to pick from, but let's just be focused and pick 3.
Okay, well, let's go straight to the big ones. So in 2005, Prince Charles seemingly forgot the microphone was on during an interview, and he turned to Prince Harry as Prince William was answering a question from the press pack. So the trio were on holidays at Closter's ski resort in the Swiss Alps at the time when the Prince of Wales was asked about his upcoming wedding to Camilla. Seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it, Bucky? They agreed to the photo call in exchange for the press leaving them alone for the rest of the holiday. But look, it didn't go quite to plan. The Prince of Wales hit the headlines when a microphone detected a scathing comment about the BBC's royal correspondent, Nicholas Witchell. Prepare to cringe.
Prince Charles, how are you feeling?
I'm very glad you heard of it anyway. Bloody people. I can't bear that. He's so horrendous.
Now, I couldn't quite hear that, Bronte. What exactly did he say about this BBC correspondent?
He said, and look, I'll do the accent for you just for the full experience. Bloody people. I can't bear that man. He's so awful. He really is.
Don't insult the press, Charles, because you're the one that's going to need good headlines when you become king, okay? Big mistake.
It truly is incredible that he managed to get caught in a hot mic moment after all these years in the public eye. Come on, Charles.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This will go down in history as one of Prince Charles's most awkward moments. It's known as Tampon Gate. Yes, Tampon Gate. It's pretty bloody awkward. Oh, pardon the pun. Basically, Bronte, in 1993, a magazine printed a transcript from a bit of a sexy phone call between Charles and Camilla. Now, this was actually recorded back in 1989, but the magazine held on until after Diana and Charles had separated until they released it. Now, the transcript of this call Oh, my word. It is horrifying. So basically, Charles said that he would love to live in Camilla's trousers. Camilla said to him, "What are you going to turn into, a pair of knickers?" And Charles replied, "Or God forbid, a Tampax. Just my luck." I mean, doesn't that make you absolutely cringe? You know what it is? This.
Disgusting!
I'm truly revolted.
Yeah, thankfully the audio doesn't exist anywhere on the internet at the moment. And surprisingly, this tampon gate didn't even get featured in the Netflix show The Crown. That's all thanks to Josh O'Connor, who was the actor who played Prince Charles, who said that he made a deal with the producers that the X-rated call wouldn't be included in the show.
When they offered me the role, one of my first questions was, I say questions, I think it was pretty much a statement, was, "We are not doing the tampon phone call." I've made many, I think pre The Crown, I had made many independent films, many television shows where there's a lot of nudity and a lot of kind of slightly dodgy characters. And this was my one chance for my parents to see something with no shame. And there's no way that I was going to scupper that by talking about tampons on Netflix.
Okay, Bronte, let's take it to number 3 of Charles's most awkward moments. What do you got for me?
Bucky, picture this. It's 1981. You've just been proposed to by the heir to the British throne and the world is watching as you make the announcement. So that's the position a teenage Diana found herself in, standing alongside her fiancé Prince Charles in what should have been a very lovey-dovey interview about their upcoming nuptials. Instead, here's how that went.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
Yes.
Oh, my word. No, Charles, no.
It is the most awkward response to an unbelievably basic question that I think the world's ever seen. Just say yes, Charles. My goodness.
What was he thinking? I mean, honestly, what a tool.
Unsurprisingly, Diana later said the exchange left her traumatised. You and me both, sweetie. Here she is talking about it in a personal recording with her voice coach, which was included in the documentary Diana in Her Own Words.
And the most extraordinary thing is we had this ghastly interview the day we announced our engagement, and this ridiculous ITN man said, "Are you in love?" So I thought, what a thick question. So I said, "Yes, of course we are," in the sort of fat, stern ranger that I was. And Charles turned around and said, "What ever in love means?" And that threw me completely. I thought, what a strange question.
What a strange reply.
God, it traumatised me.
Yeah, that was a pretty appalling display from Prince Charles and unfortunately really set the tone for the marriage.
Oh, well, I can't wait for him to become king. Bronte, thank you so much for running me through those awkward moments from Prince Charles's life.
Thanks, Bucky.
So how do you feel about Prince Charles becoming king? Like it? Love it? Hate it? Let me know, okay? You can find me on Twitter. My handle is ACBucklow. That's it for this royal episode of I've Got News for You. Speaking of crown jewels, this is possibly the worst segue ever. In tomorrow's episode, we'll be chatting about Movember and I'll be getting my testicles checked by a doctor live on the podcast. So that's something to look forward to. Should be a ball. Or 2, hopefully. Anyway, we'll catch you then.